Hi, my name's Phil. I like talking about politics, and in this video, I like to discuss the reports that more Conservatives are starting to voice concerns about Suella Braverman's hateful and destructive rhetoric. Is Rishi Sunak gathering the support he needs to sack her, maybe this summer? But first, if you'd like to be notified of daily news and politics, please subscribe to the channel and click the bell notification icon. So, starting to see some reports of Conservatives not being happy with Home Secretary Suella Braverman. In truth, I suspect the same people haven't been happy with her from the start. I think she's got a very niche level of support within the Conservative Party, but maybe the increased noise is a sign that they think her support could be weakening. I see suggestions that dissatisfied colleagues consider her outbursts to be designed to appeal to the membership in the event of a future leadership contest. For example, when Sunak steps down after losing the next election. And this certainly rings true. During the Tory party conference last year, I remember, Liz Truss was still Prime Minister, but she was under a lot of pressure because she'd already blown a massive hole in the economy by then. Braverman was openly briefing against Truss's policies. She was there being filmed, talking to party members, saying how she disagreed with some government policies. It's bad enough when backbench MPs don't toe the party line. That doesn't always happen. But senior ministers are supposed to be in lockstep. That Truss allowed her to contradict her stated policies without action could have been taken as a sign of weakness. But it was definitely a sign that Braverman was not interested in supporting the leadership, only building up her own personal reputation amongst the party faithful. Obviously, she wasn't in a strong enough position to challenge for the leadership last year on either occasion, but I could well believe that she has her eyes on the prize for later. But appealing to the membership is one thing. If she can't appeal to enough MPs, she will never go to the members because she won't find herself on the final ballot. And she seems to be proceeding with such reckless abandon that I could well believe that a lot of Tory MPs are getting sick of her now. Being clear, Rishi Sunak didn't really want her in his cabinet in the first place, and certainly didn't want her shooting her mouth off from within cabinet. Some parts of the right wing may feel that Braverman's done well in focusing attention on what they think is important, these asylum plans, but it is completely the wrong sort of attention. Any party in government wants attention for what's going well, not what's going badly. Asylum is a policy area which is going very badly. They know that the only way to fix the problems is to process claims properly, quickly and legally. But they do not have the political support to do that. Given that this is not a problem they feel motivated to fix, they would rather attention on this area was kept to a minimum. However, as a result of the combined efforts of the Tory tabloids and Braverman's motormouth, immigration and asylum are now the number one policy issue for Conservative voters, according to a poll. This is a disaster for Sunak. And it's completely out of lockstep for most voters. It's the economy and healthcare. He can only deal with this problem by applying solutions that the anti-asylum crowd won't like. And then what happens? Let's say he solves it. What then? It's no longer an issue around which he can present an election platform. If he doesn't solve the problem, and he said in an interview yesterday that he doesn't expect to solve it by the election, then he can base a manifesto promise on dealing with it, sure. But Reform UK will just point out by that time he's had 2 years to sort it out and failed. I'm not entirely sure what Sunak would prefer voters to focus on, but I don't think asylum is his preferred choice. Braverman's hateful rhetoric's also a problem for the Conservatives. See, I don't believe Sunak shares her vile views, and nor do I believe most Conservative MPs do, even though they seem content to go along with it for the sake of party unity. But things may be changing. First of all, we had Saida Warsi, former Conservative Party chair and now Conservative peer in the House of Lords. She very publicly rebuked Braverman over her hate speech. She went further, actually. She suggested that it was making life less safe for people in the UK, including her own family. This very robust intervention seems to have triggered a response from her catatonic colleagues. The Guardian is now reporting that some senior Conservatives have urged Sunak to act over Braverman's defence of a racist pub owner who expressed support for, amongst other things, the lynching of black people in Mississippi, and who appears to have a record of calling for the armed takeover of the country. When police seized the racist display in the pub, Braverman criticised them. The report suggests that these Tories feel that Braverman risks alienating key swing voters. Something I agree with. In fact, I've said as much a few times in the past. The fact of the matter is that Braverman's attitude plays well to a certain section of the voting public, but not really the sort of voters who swing between Labour and the Conservatives much, or where they do maybe in a few of the red wall seats, but Labour are going to take those back anyway. The important voters, important swing voters for the Conservatives are not really the people who share these views. In fact, the problem with Braverman is she appeals to those most likely to swing between the Conservatives and either UKIP or Reform UK. And because the Conservatives will never actually, as a group, be as extreme as Braverman herself, all she's doing is showing the party up as a sort of UKIP light. So the sort of voter she is attracting is actually more likely to vote for one of the fringe parties where that attitude is more universal than for the Conservatives, whom they may view as having some worthy champions like Braverman, but constantly being undermined by wet lettuces like Sunak. If opposition to Braverman's outburst starts to grow within the parliamentary party, Sunak may get an opportunity to throw his wayward Home Secretary out the airlock. He only appointed her in the first place, remember, because he believed her support was essential in winning the leadership contest which followed Liz Truss's rapid fall from grace. She was sacked by Truss for threatening national security. It was on any level madness for Sunak to reappoint her to the same sensitive role just 6 days later. He can only have done so because he believed it was the only way to make sure he could become Prime Minister. That was the price he paid. So he clearly felt he had no other choice. It was not a sane decision. Political leaders aren't dictators. They need a coalition of support to sustain them. So if Braverman's own support dwindles to safe levels, Sunak could then get rid of her in a reshuffle later on, and he'll have no end of reasons to give. And this isn't just random speculation. See, consider how Keir Starmer has changed his shadow cabinet over the past few years, from when he became leader to how it looks now. As he established his authority after gaining the parliamentary party's confidence, he was able to promote more people that he thought were best for the top jobs, rather than those who were guaranteeing support on the backbenchers. So if Sunak can establish some authority within his own party, he will be free to do likewise. Right now, Conservatives are starting to feel a bit more confident in Sunak. He hasn't actually done anything in real terms, but the confidence is there. You know, the Windsor framework was largely the agreement that Michael Gove earned in 2020, but which Boris Johnson wouldn't accept at the time. You know, but he could sell it as a win because it seemed he'd solved the insoluble problem which had been bedeviled Johnson for so long to people who didn't read it at all. The narrowing of the poll gap with Labour is similarly being sold as a win. In reality, he's just partially closed the gap created by his insane predecessor. The gap is still greater than it was when Tory MPs made Johnson walk the plank. You know, it could be argued that that gap would never have risen to as much as it did, or even where it is now, had they gone from Johnson straight to Sunak. But like I say, after a kick in the balls, a slap in the face is a victory. All Sunak has done is not be childishly reckless or clinically insane. And as a result, people think, by comparison, he's actually a sensible Prime Minister. If an overwhelming number of Tory MPs feel that Sunak has got a chance in the next election, and at the moment they're optimistic, but if they feel that Suella Braverman is now an obstacle to that narrow path to an unlikely victory, they may well urge him to jettison her. After all, what they want is to win the election. If you get MPs thinking, Tory MPs thinking they might have a chance, it's a slim chance, but we may have a chance. Sunak is treading the path. Braverman is making a mess of it all. She's actually costing us. She's rocking the boat. Then they may well say she needs to go. Something I'm sure he will be only too happy to oblige with, as long as he's sure that she doesn't organise any rebellions against him from the backbenchers. Because arguably, the biggest success of his Windsor framework was crushing his opposition. The ERG has now been exposed as a spent force. So we may not be far away from Sunak being able to dispense with the ERG's main representative in cabinet. He does have several ERG members in cabinet, but the rest are more pragmatic. She was the proper crazy they wanted. If more Tory MPs start to feel that Braverman is vote negative for their chances next year, they may insist that Sunak sack her. Something I reckon, as I say, he'll be only too happy to do, as long as it doesn't destabilise his leadership. But there we are. Those are my thoughts. Let me know yours in the comments below. I hope you found the video interesting. If you did, please click the like button. And if you'd like to support the channel further, the join button for memberships. And until next time, I'll see you later.